back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to ToK Time, home of the breathtaking facts that take your breath away, and #1 news show on the public internet. According to the ranking system, I made up all by myself. I'm your host, Connor White, and with me as always is my esteemed colleague / co-host, Maggie Glanton.
Hi.
And with us as always is our field reporter. He's matching because he wants to, and they call it ahead, Rocky Spinelli.
Hey guys, it's great to be here on Tech Time ToK Time edition, and I'm wearing this shirt because it's fabulous.
So obviously, Tech Time is back with episode 002 and even more breathtaking facts that take your breath away. But this week, in addition to all the technology aspect of our show, we will be integrating ToK, or Theory of Knowledge, into our show. Hence the name, Tech Time, ToK Time edition, Theory of Knowledge. I thought it was clever. Shut up. So, the topic of tonight's show is...
To what extent can technological advances cause more harm than good?
And my colleagues and I will be investigating if and how one can justify the use of controversial technology today.
Stay tuned.
Alright, before we get started, let's go over a few questions. First and foremost, how exactly can we determine if the good outweighs the bad of technology? Yeah, I tried to make my own ranking system for this one too, but it turned out to be a pretty epic fail. So for this one, we're going to leave it up to the professionals and go over some common philosophies. This is getting a bit into ethics, as it should, because it deals with how much harm are we willing to call an acceptable loss in technology.
One of the more popular theories of ethics is utilitarianism, which more or less is the belief that the needs of the many are greater than the needs of the few. An example of this could be in one of those weird old movies where the villain ties a person to the train tracks while the train is coming. If you can imagine there being one of those forks in the train tracks, and there's one guy tied on one side and 20 people tied on the other side, the ethical move, according to utilitarianism, is to turn the train in the direction of the one person opposed to the 20 people. Therefore, the lives of 20 people would be saved at the cost of one single life. The basic rule of thumb is that actions are right if they tend to increase happiness, and wrong if they decrease it. Some of the positives here include that this theory is pretty simple to understand and has a lot of rational thought involved. It is also a democratic theory because each individual is heard and each individual is accounted for. There are also some flaws to it. For example, how can we define or measure happiness? What really makes us happy? How are we supposed to determine what creates more happiness? We kind of have to assume a lot. Like, utilitarianism can actually justify murder by theory. Normally, it would appear the murder is wrong because the more happiness is lost by the dead victim, and greater joy is gained by the killer. But since it's difficult to measure happiness, it isn't possible to determine that one person that commits the murder doesn't get really, really happy from killing the other person. Lastly, another problem with utilitarianism is that it can often be vague. There are not black and white laws, but it is simply relative to what makes everyone happy.
Okay.
Universal rule is another technique in determining ethics. It stands on the opposite end of the spectrum as utilitarianism. It tries to define rules or laws as very black and white with little room for interpretation. A phrase such as "it is wrong to steal" is an example as a universal rule, because it says there is no situation where it is okay to steal. However, problems can begin when laws are not specific enough, and since there is no way possible to make a universal law for every single specific situation and scenario, must sometimes be left up to a single individual's interpretation, which can lead to problems.
Some people might say, well, we shouldn't do anything that can be harmful to somebody. That's just wrong. And to that I say, you are a fool. You are not really seeing the big picture if you think that there are actions that really don't negatively influence anyone at all. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to toss that hippie stuff right here. Hopefully, anyone who truly thought that they can always prevent harm would not be watching this, but rather something that's a little slower and more on their level, like a Vin Diesel movie.